Coming. Eastside Portland Air Coalition put this meeting together very quickly, and we're so appreciative of the community response. So thank you for coming. I know everyone came in through a very narrow hall and might not have seen everything on the table. Neighbors for Clean Air and some of our Eastside Portland Air Coalition volunteers are at the back table. They've got lots of information, including this interest form. We would love to stay in touch with you about what you're most concerned about. If you'd like to volunteer, just stay in touch and get our updates. And Hannah will be circulating, she's right there, but it's just a very short form with your name and contact information and what you're excited about, and we would love to stay in touch for our future actions and meetings. We also have, of course, the Harriet Tubman Forum is tomorrow night in North Portland, hosted by DEQ and PPS. We hope lots of you can come out for that too. This is obviously much bigger than any one company or one neighborhood. And we, as a PPS school who's in a hot spot for various toxins and very aware of that, we are in total solidarity with our other schools across Portland and Oregon. There are also arsenic and other toxic hotspots in Cully, Brentwood, Darlington, Northwest Portland, Inner North Portland, all over our city. So we hope we can all work together for the big changes we are all in solidarity with. We did put things together pretty quickly, and if anybody's interested in signing a really wonderful petition that goes to Governor Brown and the legislature, we would love to have your voices added to ours. Our member Cheryl Maloney will have it on a laptop across the hall after this first session, and you're welcome to sign it then. We would love to add to our numbers. There's Cheryl. We passed over 2,000 signatures today, and it will go to Governor Brown for an important hearing in Salem next week. Just a little housekeeping for anybody else here who used the child care, which is why I got to join us tonight. Please keep an eye on your cell phones just in case babysitters need to get a hold of you. They're wonderful, and they're right across at the gym if you want to visit with your kids anytime. Oh, sorry. It's a borrowed PA thanks to the music teacher. Oh, great. Okay. How about now? Better?
Closer.
No? Okay. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to hit it with my teeth, but let's do this. So just in case anyone is up for it, we put together a lot of copies and things quickly. If you'd like to donate $1 or $2, we'd be so appreciative. No pressure at all, but please just stop by our table and leave a donation of any amount tonight if you're up for it. And otherwise, your presence here is all we could have asked for, and we really appreciate your support. We're hoping to take this energy and not only hear from our panelists tonight, but then at the halfway point of the meeting, we'll break into 2 groups. If you'd like to stay here and do a Q&A with any questions you have on any topics of concern, you can speak with our panelists directly and ask your questions. If you'd like to move across the hall with some of us and break into action groups to do next steps, like for example, legislative advocacy in Salem, there's an important hearing next week we're very excited about, other volunteer opportunities, ways to connect with the community, and coalition building. If you live in Cully or Inner North Portland, want to connect with other people in that area, we would love to connect you with those people across the hall instead of interrupting this talk. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We so appreciate seeing all of you. Thank you. Breaking news, we're opening up the balcony upstairs. So if you'd like to sit up front with us, we'd love to have you, or if you'd like to go out that way, someone can direct you exactly how to go. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Hi, I'm Kamala Raymond. I'm going to be giving the activist update. In other words, just kind of doing a real quick 5-minute review of, okay, sorry. My name is Kamala Raymond. I'm going to just do a quick kind of 5-minute review of what's happened the last 2 weeks, where we started and where we are. And a couple of housekeeping details. One, if I don't recall if Susan mentioned this, but if when we do break into 2 groups, with those of you who don't want to miss what goes on in this Q&A session, that we are recording it with an iPhone, and it will be on our website if you want to catch up with it. We also have some health history forms at that table in the back. Is Tiffany here by any chance to explain that? We do have a couple people on at EPAC who are trying to collect health information data so that we can have kind of a database of what kind of health impacts people may have experienced from what we know has happened. And those are 6-page forms back there, and unfortunately the person who's kind of responsible for that isn't here, and all I can say is if you want to get involved in that, if you want to put your information into that database, do please, sorry, do you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you jump up here, just real fast.
Okay, just real fast. So there are forms.
Everybody should have their mouth like half an inch away from them.
You're very close.
Perfect.
That
Yeah,
is
very
nice.
close.
Yeah.
Uncomfortably close.
Uncomfortably close. Anyway, there are some forms back here. There's also going to be a site on the website. If you go to eastportlandair.org and go to enter tests, then there's a page where you can enter any testing information that you have, a place that you can enter your email, name, and address, so that we can contact you with opportunities to participate in the research once we have all that organized. You can also take the form if you'd like and get in touch with us to see what our plan is for utilizing those. But we're still in process, I think, and we're going to have some more discussion about that. The testing, though, is up, running, and ready for your input. We need to get a link to it, but that should happen later today or maybe early tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Maybe I'll try to do this better. Can people hear me? Okay, so I also just want to say that the only reason that I'm up here giving the activist update is because the people who've been doing the hardest work on activism are just too tired to do it. Hopefully some of those folks will get mentioned in this quick update that I'm going to give. Exactly 2 weeks ago today, the incident, the event that probably ultimately brought us all here together was an article by Daniel Forbes, who's here in the audience. In that article, he announced that there was going to be data released soon from the DEQ about very high, alarmingly high levels of cadmium and arsenic in the air in some hotspots in inner southeast and northeast Portland. That same day, DEQ confirmed that report with very little detail, and that same day, residents started organizing via social media to share information and start organizing a response. There were several groups that formed. The dominant one quickly became inner southeast northeast air quality, and I got to say, Amanda Jarman emerged as a very important leader. It seems like she's been in about 8 places at once and awake for about 20 hours a day over these last 2 weeks.
I think that is true.
So we have a lot to thank from her. People organizing through that group and elsewhere started contacting their elected leaders and contacting Bullseye directly to demand they stop emitting the hazardous substances. And very quickly, every news outlet in the city jumped on the story. And I'm going to try to move through this really quickly because we have a lot to do. The following day, I believe I have this correct. Maybe Daniel can correct me if I'm wrong. With pressure from DEQ, Bullseye voluntarily did suspend all use of cadmium and arsenic, at least on a temporary basis. By February 6th, 3 days after this news broke, this Facebook group had over 500 members. People had a lot of questions as far as, what toxics, so the suspension of emissions was good news, but people still wanted to know what toxics was the factory still emitting, what are the health risks as a result of breathing that air for many years, and how was this allowed to happen? So some of those questions were answered at a community meeting that Multnomah County organized at Cleveland High School on February 9th. There are sort of two takeaways from that meeting. One, that the system is not protecting us very well, and two, the data that we even have about the toxics is pretty limited. The only hard data is actually an air monitoring test that was done a few feet from the Bullseye factory for 1 month. But sorry, go ahead.
You know, you're really not coming through very well.
Okay.
And we want to hear you.
Okay.
We love to hear you. So can we get someone at the PA to get it up?
Or maybe I could just shout.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. So and slow down. We just have so much to do tonight. So the folks who were organizing, residents in general, there were 750 people roughly who showed up at that community meeting at Cleveland High School and made a very strong showing. Some of the folks, who were the folks who kind of gave statements from EPAC that night? Susan did.
So Jessica gave kind of our main list of demands, and then a lot of us just showed up with questions because as a collective group, we compiled our questions for the DEQ, which was why we were so prepared and drew their attention to the chromium issue.
And folks did gather for, I forgot to mention, a in-person meeting the night before to prepare that meeting, prepare a list of demands. And you know, that was a really important turning point where I think elected leaders, DEQ, the media, everyone saw that residents were very mobilized around this issue. Also at that meeting, Representative Jessica Vega-Peterson announced that there would be a hearing in Salem on this issue, and that will be held next Tuesday, the 23rd. So Neighbors for Clean Air, I think, is a great resource to learn about that hearing and find out what time it's going to be held. I don't know if we still know.
It's probably after 8:30.
It's going to be 8? Okay, so 8 a.m., great.
I'll just, like, low down on the agenda right now.
It's an information session, not a hearing.
Yeah, do you want, why don't we, sorry,
No, go ahead.
please, yeah, I can't use that. So I do want to kind of clarify some of the information. So I'm Mary Peveto with Neighbors for Clean Air, and thank you, everybody, for gathering tonight and being here. There has been a lot of confusion about Representative Vega-Peterson's announcement and then what was going to happen, and there was confusion actually in Salem on any actually schedule. So we apologize. We've been trying to get the information out there, and we've really just actually confirmed yesterday. So we're sharing with you as soon as we can. So this is an informational session, not a hearing. And the distinction in Salem between those two things are, is there a bill or is there no bill? And there's no bill. Really right now, in this point in the session, it would be nearly impossible. They've passed all the major deadlines to have a bill. This is an information session which will be heard in the House Energy and Environment Committee. And part of the reason why we had a lot, and this is Tuesday the 23rd at 8 a.m. That's standing committee meeting time. And there was confusion because actually the Senate Natural Resource Committee, the leadership of that committee, wanted to hear this, did want to put this on their agenda. The ability to do a joint session would be problematic, and they just couldn't pull it off. And so what is happening now is that members of that Senate committee are rearranging, and the ones that are able to are going to try and attend this session. So the way an information session goes versus a hearing is also that then the chair is allowed and creates this with invited testimony only. So Chair Vega-Peterson has been working with folks and is setting up 4 panels that will be invited testimony. And you can expect to hear, panels from the agencies, DEQ, OHA, probably Multnomah County Health. You'll hear a panel of what we consider sort of grass tops leadership, the folks that have been working, representative like Opal, who does environmental justice work, Oregon's Physicians for Social Responsibility, and Neighbors for Clean Air. And then the third panel will be the opposition, the other side of the story. And we don't get names and who that will be, but I think anybody who's spent any time in Salem probably will recognize all the faces. And then finally, a fourth panel will be citizen testimony. And so representatives of, from citizens, and we've already been reaching out and trying to talk to folks who can speak really well and eloquently for the citizen, kind of our experiences. So that is Neighbors for Clean Air, my amazing Stephen. Thank you, Stephen. Stephen has a bus booked. Yes? I did not sign a contract yet, but I know he said he had it. And we plan to have that bus at Cleveland High School by, I think that we've got to do 6:30 in the morning in order to get down there at a good time. Now, somebody in this group has mentioned that they have coffee to bring. And I want to find out, Amanda, who your amazing coffee person is. But we plan to leave at least one bus from Cleveland. We are still working with folks up in North Portland and Tubman community about whether or not there's going to be a second bus coming from North Portland.
And can folks get more information about that on your website?
Absolutely. So that's just the basics that people have been asking me, and I think we'll have a chance to answer questions when we break out more into the folks who are going to focus on these areas. But just wanted to make clear that people understood what was happening. We will be sending some action alerts out. The petition is also a big part of the support. Our plan is to deliver the petition that day. So signing the petition, getting lots of signatures. Also phone calls that day to your representatives, even if you can't show up. So we'll talk about that in the breakout, what to do. The petition is basically asking for the governor's leadership on this issue. It's pretty broad language, but it's really designed to really get the breadth of folks that are interested in this, to get the governor to focus that this really needs to be at her feet regarding the leadership and the changes that the agency needs to make, and for her to demand that of her agency. I mean, they start this process really early. They'll be, the agency will give her their first package recommendations for the 2017 budget session and their programs by June. So we need to get her to be, not asking them to study this right now, but to be making clear recommendations about what they're going to do.
And thank you so much, Mary. And she's going to be here on the panel, and folks can find her throughout the evening to ask additional questions. I'll just continue really quickly with kind of this timeline. We kind of got up to the community meeting at Cleveland High School last week. That same night, Governor Kate Brown, speaking of her, sent a letter to DEQ officials demanding to know what they knew and when they knew it, and what steps they would be taking to address the contaminants. Several days later, February 12th, our U.S. Senators Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, and U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer wrote federal environmental regulators asking them to act now in response to public health concerns of Portlanders. Oh, okay.
A new microphone.
How does this sound? So that same day, Friday, February 12th, DEQ, I'm not totally clear on this timeline. I think it was DEQ announced that Ouroboros, as well as Bullseye, had voluntarily agreed to suspend use of arsenic and cadmium. Great news. And that they each agreed to suspend use of the highly toxic chromium-6, which a lot of people are concerned about, and Ouroboros agreed to suspend use of all cadmium.
All chromium.
I'm sorry, all chromium, yeah. Making the same mistake as the TV reporter I saw yesterday. DEQ also said that it would be compiling a list of facilities in Oregon that were permitted to emit chromium compounds. Same day that Eastside Portland Air Coalition website goes live, that one. Eastsideair.org or eastportlandair.org. Monday, February 15th, responding to a call from the Oregon Department of Justice, Bullseye agrees to temporarily suspend use of all chromium. And this is all in response to the continuing activism of a lot of the people in this room. Governor Kate Brown issues a response to their response. I won't go into all of it, but it's asking for a broader effort to address these issues on a systemic level. Tuesday, February 16th, that was just yesterday, the Eastside Portland Air Coalition sends a letter to Bullseye asking for, what exactly?
We want them to stop using all toxics until they install filters. They've stopped with the 3 we know of, but they're still using lead, nickel, cobalt, and manganese on a regular basis, and I've confirmed that with their spokespeople.
There was a lovely, peaceful protest yesterday that people came out with great signs and were very respectful and said what they wanted to say at the Bullseye facility. We're continuing to move forward. And tonight is an opportunity for all of us to get together and get some more questions answered from our panel of experts, and then break into action groups so we can, just increase our effect. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Alyssa.
Thank you, Bella. Sorry, we're going to need to do the action groups in about 15 minutes. So folks that are doing the action groups won't get to see all of the panel, but we are recording, so you can see it at home later.
So we have a panel of experts. I'm Alyssa Eisenstein-Kruger. I'm a kindergartner here at Abernethy. I guess our first person on the panel is...
Hi, I'm Dr. Courtney Day. I'm a naturopathic physician and Southeast Portland resident. I was invited here to answer more questions about heavy metal testing and just options for helping patients to get healthier. And so if you have any specific questions for me, I welcome those, but I just wanted to do a broad overview over testing. So I just wanted to point out that the CDC has great resources regarding testing, and Oregon Health Authority actually disagrees with some of the CDC guidelines, so I just wanted to point that out. If you look at the CDC's recommendation, they recommend a 24-hour urine to test for heavy metals, especially cadmium, and that needs to be done with a creatinine ratio along with it. So that is really important when you go to your doctor to make sure that they're ordering the right testing for you, especially if it needs to hold up in court, it needs to be ordered properly. And then also, the CDC recommends hair and or nail analysis for long-term arsenic exposure. So I just wanted to direct you to the CDC website and make sure that you're working with a physician that is aware of all the guidelines. And then as far as treatment options, I'm a naturopathic doctor, and there are plenty of naturopathic doctors in town that are trained in environmental medicine and how to read toxicology reports and implement a protocol. So I just wanted to point out that if you are lacking information from your current pediatricians or medical doctors, that naturopathic physicians are another option out there.
And after our panelists, we're going to have some Q&A with everybody. So if you do have questions, hold them in your brain for right now. Our next panelist is Alex Lopez, and he's an environmental geologist.
That's correct. Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Lopez. I'm an environmental geologist. I've been doing environmental cleanup work in Oregon and the Northwest for a little over 10 years. I currently own and operate a small environmental consulting firm called Blackbear Environmental Services, and I'm actually here because of that and my professional interest, but I also live and work out of a home office about 7 blocks from Bullseye, so this hits home pretty hard. I was invited here to talk a little bit more about the technical issues involved in air testing and soil testing, so I'll be here to answer those, but just to kind of give a little overview from my perspective of where the issues lie at this point. You know, we as a community have really gotten together and raised our voices and caused some pretty significant change, specifically with what Bullseye is doing with their operations. So as everybody here recognizes, we've got an air issue. But one of the things that I want to point out is that the metals that have been released into the air end up settling out into trees and the ground in the area where that plume was located. So now that we're looking at the air issues, I'd also like to make sure that people understand that those issues can be in soil as well. And also water, we don't quite have, I don't think we have anybody on non-municipal water in the area, but some of these metals are do get dissolved in water, and that can be an issue as well. So from my perspective, we're well on the road to understanding where these toxins come from and what we can do about them to test in our local area. But I do think we need to continue asking questions. So Bullseye is suspended use of arsenic, cadmium, and some of their chromium. I thought I saw something earlier about them actually having discontinued use of all chromium products, but we need to continue asking questions about the other metals that they're using, about the other industrial processes that they may be using, and also about the other industrial activities that go on in the area around us. So that I would just say we need to be continually vigilant about that. And really, where do we go from here? So I think we've made some good first steps in terms of understanding where we are technically. I think we've done some really good work at engaging the political and the regulatory process around this, but there's a lot of work that's still yet to be done. A lot of that is highly technical, but as a neighborhood and a neighborhood coalition, I think we can really help out to really understand what is going on and what the health risks are. Oh, okay. Okay. And that's about all I had. Again, I'm here to answer specifically questions about soil testing, some for air testing as well. And I'll pass this on to the next panelist.
Hi, I'm Dr. Louise Tolzmann, and I'm also a naturopathic physician. I am a Southeast resident, 18 years, have raised my kids there, they still live there. And I have done extensive training in environmental medicine. This is my field, I love this stuff. And this is a really big issue, and it's really exciting to see this much response talking about this issue and starting to make changes. Because we've been seeing issues health-wise with environmental exposures for a long time. So it's high time that we started kind of asking questions and looking. The big things that I wanted to talk about were the differences really in arsenic and cadmium. I'm not going to touch chromium, I'm not going to touch nickel. Arsenic really, it moves through the body fairly quickly. It goes through a process called methylation. If you can methylate fairly well, you can get it out of your body probably in 1 to 2 weeks, which is a little bit different than cadmium. Cadmium really likes to stay in the body. It likes to go into the kidneys, and it likes to stay there for 25, 30 years, and it'll just sit there. So part of testing, involves what we're trying to look at, what's actually in the body, right? So we know that there's high levels in the air, and yet already from the test results that we're starting to see, not everybody has high levels. And it's probably going to be similar in the soil testing as well. It's not all going to be positive. And part of that involves the differences in our own bodies, so our own genetics. We're coming in with our own genetics and our ability to be able to clear these from our bodies. We're also coming in with our own loads. A lot of these things are transferred in utero, they're transferred through breast milk, so we have already come into the world with loads. We have then had a lifetime of accumulation, and so this is now something that's adding to it. And for some people, they're going to have higher levels. And it can be people in the same household, people in the same family can have very different levels in their bodies. So I know that the Oregon Health Authority right now is not necessarily recommending everybody get tested. They're saying, get tested if you want to get tested. Working in this field and feeling like prevention is really important, I am recommending people get tested. It's a urine test. It's not that invasive, it's not that expensive. You can get a really good sense of cadmium from a urine test. You can see cadmium, you can see arsenic in a urine test if you're still in the window of having been exposed. And there's ways of actually getting it out, which I think that's the other piece that's not really getting talked about, is we need to get these things out of our bodies, why have them in here? We know that there's associated increased risk with having higher levels. Why have these in there? So the only other place really that I think I differ from the Oregon Health Authority, is in some of the levels. So the actionable levels that the Oregon Health Authority is talking about, certainly for cadmium, comes from the World Health Organization. And their levels are different. Under 20 and under is 1 microgram per gram creatinine. It's a concentration, like Dr. Day was talking about. And it's, and this is for cadmium. For 21 and older, the level is 3.0 micrograms per gram creatinine. But the research really doesn't back that. The research starts to show that there is increased risk for all sorts of conditions at a much lower level, at 0.5 micrograms per gram creatinine. So, you know, part of what I encourage everybody to do is get tested, work with someone, make sure that you're checking the right levels. Certainly with cadmium, you know, there's micrograms per gram creatinine and there's micrograms per liter, and they get used differently. It's very easy to kind of get misled and realize that you're not actually comparing the same units. So make sure that what you're looking at is what you're comparing with. Yeah.
So I want to be really quick because we have an amazing guest. I'd like to make sure we can preserve any time we have left in your 15 minutes that was probably gone 5 minutes ago. Okay, but you know, so one thing is we're going to break out and talk about Salem and a rally and all that stuff, and so I really want to talk to the people interested in that later. I want to ask in this room, who here lives within like a half a mile of Tubman School?
Across the street.
Tubman?
Across the street.
Great, great. So, and is that the only folks here tonight?
No, I'm sorry, I meant I live across the street from both.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because I know it's already been mentioned about the meeting tomorrow night in Tubman. So I just want to really quickly talk to you guys about that. I think it's great that there's been a call for you guys to show up in solidarity. I want to also remind you that there is a community there that is impacted and has a really different story, and their community history is really different. And so I really want you to kind of think about allyship as opposed to, you know, a total solidarity, which would come in with all the best intentions, but sometimes possibly could make a community at their own meeting in their own neighborhood maybe not accept you in the same, you know, they might read it not in how you intend. So I just ask you that when we get, you know, when you're at Tubman, if you do come to the meeting, which is great, and I do think it's fantastic. We've already heard that the mayor is planning to be there. Actually, Wyden staff just told me they're going to be there. I think it's important that we're there. But I also think it's important, just like we had at the Cleveland meeting, that our folks on the front line got to stand at the microphone first, and that we really make sure that we're very aware of the folks who are in that community and make sure that we do everything we can to support them to getting to the front of the room on this. So I just wanted to mention that one thing. I think it's really awesome, and I think it's really great. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about Tubman later. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over, and I feel like Dan needs a introduction. He's sort of our celebrity guest tonight, coming all the way from California. Seattle, I'm sorry, that's right. Your colleague from California. So Dan from Keller, Rohrback.
Thank you. I'm neither a celebrity, well, I guess that's the only thing, I'm not from California or a celebrity. I am, however, an attorney. Yay! So Matt Bruce, my colleague, and I work for a firm called Keller Rohrback. We sue companies who do bad things. Right now, Matt and I represent hundreds of VW diesel owners who are defrauded into thinking they're doing something good for the environment, in fact polluting the environment. We represent a bunch of homeowners in California right now in Porter Ranch who live a mile away from an uncontrolled methane gas leak. So Matt and I are here today not just because this is what we do for a living, but it's because we feel this is something that gets us pissed off. Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that.
Okay, this makes me pissed off. Matt and I both were Oregonians. We were both Portlanders. I was a professor at Lewis and Clark Law School for 6 years, where I worked in our environmental law clinic. I represented organizations like the Northwest Environmental Defense Center with Mark Riskadal. I'm on their board now. So when Matt was a student at Lewis and Clark, he lived a couple blocks away from here, a couple blocks this way. So when we heard about this really upset us, and we thought, we would like to at least come and see if we can answer questions and provide whatever kind of help that we as lawyers can provide. Now, there are some amazing people here, scientists, doctors, etc., community people. You all are far more important than we are. We're but a tool in the toolbox for getting things done. But Matt and I stand here as tools ready to answer questions as best we can. And maybe if people in the community feel like it's something that we should be pursuing, we're happy to try to do something. It is but one part of what can be done with companies in situations like Bullseye. But we know Bullseye isn't the only problem here. We have other glass facilities, but we have, precision cast parts. Well, you're gonna get me on a roll here. I feel like I'm gonna start naming names. I feel like Howard Dean going to the States and anyway, so my point is really that there are a lot of problems out here. One of the problems is regulatory indifference. And now I'm gonna get myself into a whole host of problems, but regulatory indifference sometimes means taking a bus down to Salem and saying, what the hell's going on here? What the heck is going on here? But part of it can also sometimes be, hey, we have these court systems here for a reason. And it's time for us to stand up and take a stand there to make some change on the political front, etc. So at any rate, I will stop so we can get into our groups. I am so honored to have been asked to come and join you here today because you guys are the real heroes in this room. All right.
So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have some activists who want to break out into groups. I'm going to tell you what those groups are. You can go over to across the hall, and those will be breaking out. In the meantime, people who want to stay in here, and ask our panelists questions. We're going to do a big Q&A. For those of you who have your question answered, and then you want to go over there, that's fine. If you want to go over there and come back, that's fine too. Are we all convening back here afterwards?
Actually, if everybody wants to end there and sign up for their action group, that works.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, so stay here as long as you want to ask questions, go over there and activate for what you want. So here are the groups that are going to be over there. One is going to be centered on Bullseye and stopping the toxics that come without filtration. One is going to be about science, soil, medical, and toxics. One is going to be about getting the stories out, whether it's on the web, words, through art. One is about media, how we are probably going to be engaging with the media and getting our message across. Another one is legal. What types of options are open to us, or how do we want to pursue those? Another one is coalitions in and out of our neighborhood, again, like the Tubman neighborhood, the other neighborhoods. Another one is resources. Where are we going to come up with some money to help people get testing and soil samples and pay for copies? And then the other one is legislative, which is, again, what Mary talked about, going down to Salem, getting stuff done on the state level. And then operations, the really unsexy stuff that happens behind the scenes. So those are the activist groups. If any of those topics interest you, go over there and find your people and talk about them. In the meantime, we're going to just open this up for Q&A. We have one mic, not quite sure how that's going to work. Maybe we'll just try yelling, and if you don't yell loud enough, you'll come up here. But let's just wait a couple minutes till... Yeah, maybe we'll switch the mic over here. But let's just give it a couple minutes before we start our questions so that gives time for people to move.
Do it.
It's like, I feel lighter.
A little bit of research on precision cast parts.